Callum Smith knocks out Hadillah Mohoumadi in the first round. This was a guy who went the distance with James DeGale a few years ago. Although it has to be said, this was when DeGale wasn't really firing on all cylinders. But nonetheless, it's impressive that Callum Smith was able to get him out of there so quickly. His trainer Joe Gallagher said that he expected this fight to probably go the distance and be similar to the Christoph Rebras fight, which was the last time we saw Callum Smith in action. But no, he got the job done early. And the big mistake that Mohoumadi made, and I don't know why he did this. Maybe he didn't really respect Callum Smith. Maybe he thought he was green, and maybe he thought he was a bit of a hype job. I don't know what it was. But a big mistake he made is he marched straight forward and opened up on Callum Smith immediately. He backed Callum Smith into a corner and he was letting all types of shots go without really any type of thought about what he was doing. He just marched forward and started unloading. And Callum Smith tucked up nice and tight and countered with a left hook, hurt the guy, got him on the run, eventually started teeing off on the ropes, and that was all she wrote. The referee could have stepped in a little bit earlier, I felt. Mohoumadi was well out of it by the time the referee did actually jump in. So he could have stopped it a little bit earlier. But yeah, it was a good performance by Callum Smith. People are already saying that this guy is going to beat the other British super middleweights out there, namely George Groves and James DeGale. It was interesting watching the post-fight interview with Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn's saying that Callum Smith is going to dominate the division. And I've noticed there is a bit of tension between James DeGale and Eddie Hearn. And I think it probably stems from the fact that James DeGale signed with Al Heyman. And now Al Heyman seems to have more control over James DeGale's career than Eddie Hearn does. And I think that's why Eddie Hearn and James DeGale are, I'm not going to say they're enemies or anything like that, but I think there is a little bit of tension there. But James DeGale, at the end of the day, he's learned from his early experiences in boxing, and he's learned that this fight game is a business, and he's learned to treat it as all business. So, James DeGale has no real affection, that's the way it seems, for the promoters that he deals with. He just sees it as a total business transaction, and there's no kind of friendship there or anything. And that's totally fair enough from a fighter's perspective, because that's how most promoters treat fighters anyway. They treat them as just commodities. So I've said this before. But anyway, back to Callum Smith. A lot of people are saying he's going to beat DeGale and Groves. Personally, right now, if he was to fight Groves, I would pick him over Groves, because Groves has looked, in my opinion, poor ever since that rematch with Carl Froch. He hasn't looked himself. So I would pick Callum Smith to beat George Groves. As far as James DeGale, that's a much more difficult fight. James DeGale is very slippery. He's very tricky. One thing that people often forget to mention about James DeGale is that DeGale's got a very solid chin. This is not a guy who's chinny in any way. He's got a solid chin. He, as I say, is slippy, fights southpaw, fights orthodox. Not the biggest puncher in the world, James DeGale. He's got respectable power, but definitely not the biggest puncher in the world. I don't think he's going to shock Callum Smith with any type of power or anything that he can throw. I'm sure Callum Smith would be interested in that fight, avenging the defeat his brother suffered at the hands of James DeGale. And obviously the same with George Groves. His brother Paul Smith lost to both of them. I'm sure Callum would like to get one back for the family, so to speak. Whether either of those guys are going to fight Callum Smith in the foreseeable future, we'll see. George Groves is likely to clash with Martin Murray, and we'll see. Maybe the winner of that fight will fight Callum Smith if they fancy it. And James DeGale, he's got a fight coming up, and then possibly a unification with Badou Jack. We'll see how it goes. But drop your comments in the comment section below, people. What did you think of this performance? And what do you think of Callum Smith as a prospect or as a contender now? It's taken me a while to be convinced by Smith, but this really was a good performance. I'm still not 100% sold on him yet. I still want to see a bit more, see him fight different types of opponents. and step up his level of competition. But this was good. This was definitely good. But at this point, like I said, I'd still pick DeGale over him. Maybe you disagree. If so, tell me why in the comment section below. Who do you think Callum Smith can beat in the super middleweight division right now? And do you agree with Eddie Hearn that this guy is going to go on to dominate the division? I know Eddie Hearn is his promoter, and Eddie Hearn loves to overhype his fighters. He's doing the same with Joshua. But do you actually believe that Eddie Hearn might actually be right in this case? Let me know in the comment section, people. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.